Hello and welcome to Made of Nightmares 2023 yet again, and for the last time, at least this time around, I have one more piece of Wrasslin history, and clearly I've saved the best for last. And the best for last is definitely to talk about the life and career of Mark Calaway, who we all know and love as the Undertaker, who spent the majority of his pro wrestling career wrestling in the WWF, WWE. But before he got there, he had to start somewhere. Now, Mark Calaway got his start in 1986 and he trained under Buzz Sawyer, but he's reportedly stated that he didn't really like Buzz Sawyer and because he lacked commitment to really training him, so he learned on the job. So he bounced around through mainly the Texas area or Houston area, so he's a big Texan. And no, he's not from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I think people get him mixed up with Big Sky, who's from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He's from Texas. And in one of his early wrestling stints, he wrestled as Big Red under a mask. It's a start. And he mainly wrestled under this gimmick in WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling, which is the Von Erich territory. He did do other gimmicks as well. He even eventually got managed by Percy Pringle, who would later be more well known as Paul Bearer. But after his stunt in Texas, he got a call to go to WCW. So from 1987 to 1989, he had spent most of his time in Texas. By late 1989, he got his call to join WCW. And Terry Funk, the late Terry Funk, actually gave his name Mean Mark Callous because he looked at him and he thought, he's cruel, he's callous, he's tall. So first he was part of the Skyscrapers team here, pictured here. He's managed by Teddy Long alongside Dan Spivey. But this team didn't last long. The Skyscrapers would be rebranded, sort of. So basically, Sid Vicious took Mark Callis's position. But Mark Callis had an uptick in his profile on WCW. So while he was a solo competitor, he was managed by Paul E. Dangerously, a.k.a. Paul Heyman. Yes, before he was The Undertaker, Mark Calaway was a Paul Heyman guy. But from 1989 to 1990, WCW really didn't know what to do with him. They figured he wasn't going to draw, even though he had a devastating finisher at the time called the Heart Punch. They just didn't see drawing power. So, at the request of Paul Heyman, he said, give WWE a call. He did. He thought, well, they might say no. I'll just go back and give up this dream and do what I do. Nope. WWE had plans. And of course, you know it as well as I know it. From 1990 up until 2020, Mark Calaway was the Undertaker and was active in the WWE and the WWF. And he went through such evolution. Started off as the Dead Man, evolved into that Ministry of Darkness figure, became the American Badass, also the Big Evil, which is my favorite era, personally. And then returned to the Dead Man and would adapt sort of an MMA style into his repertoire. And he was a top draw for a good 3 decades almost. And I can't help but mention the fact that as a locker room leader, he elevated people and had fantastic feuds with the likes of, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Mankind, Kane, Edge. The list goes on and on and on. He always did what was right for the company, but he also entertained the fans as well. By 2020, Mark Calaway decided to slow down. By 2021, he was officially retired. And in 2022, he earned his rightful place in the WWE Hall of Fame. He does still make sporadic appearances. And you would guess it, when I saw him show up on NXT and chokeslam Braun Breaker under his American Badass persona, which is, again, my personal favorite, nostalgic rush. And I love The Undertaker as much as anyone else does. And outside of the wrestling world, well, he's a proud family man. He was first married to his wife Sarah, but they divorced in the mid 2000s. And then from there, he ended up falling in love with fellow WWE diva Michelle McCool, and they've integrated their families together and are enjoying life together. And I wish Mark Calloway the best in his future endeavors. And, you know, The Undertaker is definitely in like my top favorite wrestlers. And besides, when I grew up watching wrestling, I was always the weird kid. So seeing The Undertaker and liking his character drew attention to me. And of course, kids in school thought, why don't you like Stone Cold? Why don't you like The Rock? Well, because The Undertaker's cooler. Honestly. So comment below and let me know if you have any Undertaker memories. And that is it for Wrasslin history, at least in the Maid of Nightmares 2023. I will do more of these in the near future, of course. I have tons of ideas. But I'm going to move on to a different series. And the series is going to be called Game On, which is my way of putting together video game history, video game discussions, all that jazz. And I can't think of any better series to start than a cult classic horror franchise. You'll see what I'm talking about tomorrow. Take care.